Hi, how's everybody doing tonight? Thank you so much for joining us for Poetry Goes Viral here on the Carolina Poets page. We are actually going to be multicasting tonight. So we are here at Carolina Poets, but we are also on the Wits and Poetry page. And hopefully we are also going to be on YouTube tonight as well. So if you want to share this with anyone later on, you can share it from the Facebook page, but you can also go back and look at it as Facebook as well. My name is Kimberly Sims, and I'm the founder of Carolina Poets. Along with myself, Derek Berry, and Andrew K. Clark, we curate each of these weekly events that happen every Thursday night right here at 7 o'clock. And every week we feature 3 different poets with a Southern connection. I'm super excited about our show that we are having tonight because we have 3 New York poets, all of who have connections to the South. So I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. A lot's been happening in New York recently, and they've all been doing lots of writing. So they're going to share some poems from their books and whatever else they want to. If you are enjoying tonight, please be sure to share the stream. There is a share button below this, and you can share it to your personal page. You can also like it. The other thing is we do welcome comments. We welcome questions. And hopefully we will have some time at the end of the show to ask a few questions of the 3 poets that we have with us tonight. Tonight our show is featuring Sarah Kain Gutowski, Refried Bean, and Mariangela Mihai. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Sarah on here. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sarah is the author of Fabulous Beast Poems. This is from the Texas Review Press. She was runner-up for the 2018 X.J. Kennedy Prize, a winner of the 14th Annual National Indie Excellence Award for Poetry, and a 2019 Forward Indies finalist. She holds an MFA in poetry from New York University and a BA from James Madison University. As a professor of English at Suffolk County Community College, she has co-chaired the annual SCCC Creative Writing Festival for over a decade. So Sarah, we are so happy to welcome you here today. I'm going to step aside now and
Thank you. Again, Kimberly, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. These online virtual poetry readings are the maybe one good thing to come out of the pandemic, and that we can all see one another still virtually and support one another's work. And I really appreciate Carolina Poets and you for supporting my book and my work. Okay, so set my little timer. This is my book, Fabulous Beast Poems. And it deals with mythology and fable and fairy tale, and it tries to reimagine the primarily female experience through those lenses. And this came out of a period of time where I was really stuck with my writing, and I didn't know what I wanted to write. And I gave myself an assignment, and what came out of it was to write something that was completely opposite me or different from me. And I came up with an animal. I thought I'll become an animal. So I wrote about a pig and then I made it a shape-shifting pig. And I really started getting into this very strange place with my poems, but it kind of led me to some peace because I kind of found my, I don't know if I call it exactly a genre, but I really like weird, strange, fabulous stuff. And so I've kind of begun maybe calling myself a fabulous poet because I'm using that in order to make sense of my everyday life. So these poems were how I made sense. The first ones I'm going to read are the ones that helped me make sense of motherhood. And this first one is called "The Mother Cannot Ask for What She Needs." Usually, the sow sleeps solidly, head flat to the earth, listening to the grubs and beetles move. Nothing can wake her. But sometimes a scent or a sound pulls her from the dreamless mud. She shuffles into the garden's black air. She looks up, and she loves the cool scent of honeysuckle awakened at night. She loves not her odorous, thick hide, but the earth that sings under her cloven feet. Against the darkness, she feels like a sponge. She waits to be emptied so she can fill up again. The mother grows tired of excuses. It isn't metamorphosis that makes her a witch as much as the malevolence that rises her body, riding waves of heat. She abhors her lack of patience with the piglet's teeth, her heavy sigh, and the way she lumbers just out of reach, as much as she loathes in those same sharp moments the piglet's need, its insistent nudge against her teat. All she wishes for is blinding sun, unbroken by touch or squeal, warm earth, cushioned by darkest sleep, no matter whether these interruptions speak of want or the deepest natural love. So for the most part, the pig discovers that it can or she can change form, and she becomes, at times she speaks, and at times she turns into the form of a woman. So this poem, this is what's happening here. The mother makes time for herself. When her body does what she wants, her cloven feet grow long and dexterous. The splitting hurts, but the sow gives herself to this pain. Newly formed, she lets herself, now a girl complete with long, nimble fingers, into the farmer's house. Then at the family piano, she sits because she can bend, actually bend, at the waist. And she begins to play, not with hesitation, but with all the energy surging through this new female form. She pummels the keys with her soft, smooth finger pads. No noise. Just each hammer hitting the strings like rays of light, the pedals sighing and stretching clear, resonant notes. The bellows in her heart pumps the music in and out, nothing nasal, no braying or porcine grunt, and she plays until she hears the farmer's step on the porch. When he enters, he finds only a sow in his living room. Distraught and wild over her sudden weight returned, she fractures the piano stool, her hooves slam the keyboard, and she falls to the wide wood planks of the floor. Some things the mother cannot change. When she feels lonely and she envies the swan, her constant mate, the sow lumbers into the moonlight and shifts her shape again to resemble the widowed farmer's wife. This body feels heavier than that of the girl who played the piano with joy in the family room, but it, she, his wife's ghost, is no less a moonbeam or a pale dream that moves softly through the farmhouse and into the marriage bed. When she lifts the coverlet and nestles beside him, naked and opulent, this is what she gives the farmer: a dream, a walk through rows and rows of lavender. And when she laces his calloused fingers with her own, he loops his hands through the lattice of a rope swing and sails back and forth over a generous, bright river. The sun warms his face whenever she sighs. And when he breathes into her, his sow wife, she smells the earth, freshly disturbed and wet with life. His kiss tastes hot and peppery, like roots or vegetables harvested too soon. The stories our mothers teach us. For Lisbeth and Nicolina. When I was your size and just weaned, the sow tells her piglet, I found a hole in our pen and squeezed my small, round body through. At first, no one missed me. I ran across the farmer's fields, slipped into a ditch filled with nettle and wire, and then climbed out, skin and snout torn. Between the edge of the field and that stinging, tearing abyss, I sat, panting at the sky. All the stars tapped and telegraphed shiny, tinny warnings, but I refused to listen. The night wind smelled sharp with burning wood and honeysuckle, and I had to follow the scent. That was the day I fell in love with blindness, and the strange way that scent and even stench can comfort us. But I was found, and now I have scars. May I go into the woods one day? Her piglet asks. It is my duty to deny, the sow says. Your duty is to listen, and then dig and dig under fences at night. I was just thinking, my daughter, I probably don't want her to read that one again and be reminded of those last lines because she's 15 and, we don't want 15 running out and digging under fences right now. So 15-year-old should stay home. Okay. The poems got a little violent and weird, but it was a good kind of exorcism from those parts of me that were unhappy and a little postpartum depressed when I was writing them. The mistakes our mothers make. I birthed my first litter in another field like this. From where I'd built my nest, I could see the horizon's edge glitter in the wet morning, a spring rain cutting through the hard earth and preparing it for the till. I lay confused on my pallet of chewed grasses, the twigs and leaves I'd crushed without knowing why, or for what event I prepared. Birthing was less a miracle and more a letting go, the release of a knot I'd carried for months within my belly. I didn't understand the small, wet shapes that glistened under the early sun, and their first sucks of air, their little hooves kicking silently, scared me. When the farmer found me with afterbirth hanging in a long drool from my jaw, and only 2 piglets remained from the 6, he knew what I'd done. He raised the leftover babies to my breast, and neither had to fight for food. The sow grunts softly to the litter that slides from her now, slipping, each a water drop from a rain-soaked leaf. Your luck is not real luck, she sings to them. My darlings, you will grow lousy with it. So the middle part of the book is a fairy tale. And I got very fascinated with the morphology of fairy tales. They're kind of like these stations that the fairy tale has to go through to be a fairy tale, or really, I mean, these are stations that fairy tales happen to have. Like that's what has been observed over time, and how it changes. So I loved the way so many of them have to do with transformation, and I began, I suppose like an adult fascination with Anne Sexton's, with fairy tales when I read Anne Sexton's transformations. So past that, this is like my own kind of dabbling with it. My character is born speaking with a voice that sounds something like the speech of birds or insects, and nobody can understand her. And eventually she grows tired of it and leaves her home. And eventually then she stumbles on a little magician who is able to, he tells her he can help her, and really he changes her physically. He changes her tongue, so that instead of speaking like a bird or an insect, she has this strange frog tongue. So this is the woman with the frog tongue. And I'm going to start with chapter 2. She is warned and ignores the warning, interdiction and violation. Unable to speak and full of sorrow, the woman walked until, overcome, exhausted, her feet dragged to a stop. Above the trees, she saw a tower's gilded turret. The old familiar rising in her belly told her, this is home. So she made her way through thorns and brush until she came to a door at the tower's base. She knocked. The door, unlocked, swung open. Up the cramped stairs, she pulled herself, her head tilted to keep her tongue inside the cage of her mouth. Her jaw ached from restraining its bulk. She entered the tower's one round room, the kind of place where she, a woman newly changed and worn threadbare, could lay her body down and rest. On the large round bed, a skein of silk and a ladder roped around the bedpost remained, a futile effort made by the last girl here. Atop a table beside the bed, a silver knife glinted next to a slender needle carved from stone. Robust vines clung to the window sash, invading the room. Their leaves ticked softly against the walls. The air was damp and cool. She perched on the bed and sensed her tongue's desire to slide past her teeth and down to the cold marble floor. It pulsed behind her lips, an animal testing its cage. She held the needle to a beam of light and watched the dust motes drift around and skirt the fine, sharp point. Then she stitched the silken floss across her mouth until a lattice formed through which water and air could slip. White and clean as bone, the needle worked her flesh. The stitches were true and tight. She closed her eyes and tried to rest. After many days, a man approached the tower, a prince. On errand and weary from his search, he hoped he might find rest within the tower's high room. He climbed the stairs, and when he saw the woman there, something inside his memory creaked, like cartilage remembering how to work inside the knee again. As if his life were a question, and she the calm reply, he bent to take her answer. But when their lips touched, he felt the net of stitches, each thread tight, stiff, and caked in blood. Something lived in there. He sensed it lurking, curled and tense, preparing to strike. He pulled away, cobwebs stuck to his teeth. The woman's eyelids flickered open. She raised her head and stared into the prince's face, handsome and scared, regret already written there and mirroring her own, for they both knew he held an empty promise in his kiss, and no solution. She wiped the spider silk from off his face. He left, and the woman stayed, her mind raging, her jaw clenched. When I was writing the fairy tale, I can't believe I did it, but I was reading the chapters to my daughter who was very young. She had to be like 5 or 6. And she was obviously, as one would be, like, you don't have to be 5, was confused by it. And she would ask questions. So I made those the titles of poems that interrupt the fairy tale. And so one of the questions she asked me is, Mama, what is regret? She misses her voice and its insect ring. The tower's emptiness tolls, waves of quiet, to the point where even her thoughts are mute, and a series of pictures, not sounds, moves through her head. The world moves around her. Every tossed tree limb, every detached cobweb, whatever the wind shifts, speaks, and it says to her, you were once this light, this movable. When she wakes from restless dreams and the stitches strain between her lips, she feels more fully the reach of her silence. She cannot even click or tisk her tongue in shame, and she has never felt so clumsy, so burdened and ungainly. When she spoke with the black cricket's creak and whistle, she knew someone, somewhere, understood her, no matter if he was very small and very slight and likely to be crushed between animal jaws or flattened under a human foot. Even in her tower room, lying unencumbered on her bed, she sympathizes. She feels it looming in the air above her, the force of that sudden, obliterating weight. Mama, how does the woman with the frog tongue eat? The regret she feels turns to rage, and with it the tenor of her dreams changes too. Now she is a giant wave, an accumulation, a wet mouth screaming toward the shore. She wants to devour it all. Beaches, trees, and grassy dunes. They disappear beneath her massive overbite. Small towns, long roads, the suburbs of cities, and then the cities themselves. She feeds the river and lake beds like a mother bird who has chewed and digested food for her young, and then they rise up too to devour the land and its inhabitants. And then she is no longer water, but a whale within it, the detritus from felled and sea-scrubbed civilizations collecting in her spiny teeth. She eats and eats, less to be full, more to destroy. When she wakes, her jaw aches in the place where her molars ground together, and her hunger is nothing but a nightmare, in daylight, less frightening, and gone. Remarkably, my daughter wasn't really traumatized by me reading her the fairy tale. And in fact, at one point in the fairy tale, the woman grows a second heart because there has to be a second transformation in the morphology of a fairy tale. So she transforms again. And my daughter said to me the first line of this poem, which ends the collection. She says, "Mama, I feel 2 beats on each side of me, so I think I have 2 hearts." I answer, "When I was a little girl, I read about the earth and the way it spins. Then at night, when I lay in bed beside the big window in my room and the crickets and cicadas sung to me through the dark, while the scent of honeysuckle crawled past the window sash, I'd have moments where I felt myself spun too, whirling very fast, as if I'd returned to that playground ride where the older kids kept running around the carousel faster and faster, and eventually I whipped into the air, a little flag of blonde hair and corduroy snapping to and fro, my scream lost in the wind. I thought I was going to die. I'd recall that chaos, that lost control, later when I'd been tucked into my sheet and my hair smoothed and my mother saying goodnight. When she left the room, I became the axis on which the world spun, whirling with it and growing dizzy from insect song and the scent of flowers opening in the humid dark. It is amazing what the mind draws forth, I tell her. I like your 2 hearts. I imagine they are birds, though I will tell you about your blood and the way it carries a word repeated through the pathways of your body. I want you to believe me. And yet, I want for you those summer nights, too, when you lie awake and imagine all the ways you don't." And I'm going to end there, and I look really forward very much to hearing everybody else.
Yay. Thank you, Sarah. We appreciate that so much. And where can people buy your book?
They can buy it through the Texas Review Press site. I can put a link in the comments, and
Okay, great. Awesome. And I put a link to your website, so I think maybe they can also maybe get it there too.
Oh, actually, yeah, if you go to the website, there's a link under books where you can go. So thanks so much for doing that.
Well, thank you. That was awesome. And if anyone has any questions, definitely put those in the comments and we'll circle back to them at the end. Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, well, that was our first reader. And now we're going to be having our second reader, who is Refried Bean, who is from Greenville, South Carolina. At least that's when I met her when we were both teenagers. But she's in New York. And Refried Bean lives in New York City, enjoys writing poetry, cooking, and volunteering. Refried worked in a bookstore for 12 years and has an MFA in writing from Vermont College of Fine Arts. I'm super excited to have Refried Bean here with us. Her poetry is a lot of fun. She writes about humor and spirituality and all kinds of wonderful things. So I'm going to kind of step off the stage here and give our full attention to Refried Bean.
Hi, everyone. During the live posting or later on. I'm excited to be reading, and I'm actually gonna I'm gonna be visiting Greenville soon. And so I'm excited about that. I hope you guys are getting through COVID okay. Tonight I'm gonna read from one of my collections called The Forgiveness Flag. And I do have like a backup copy right here. But really my books are ebooks. I have a lot of ebooks posted online on Smashwords and Apple Books and bn.com. And I have a website called refriedbean.com. So this is my first reading in a while, and I'm just gonna go through this collection, which is kind of a sampler of a lot of poems. So this one is called Some People Must Stay Alive. We need some people to live to tell, to eat some ice cream and all be well, to pass the torch and plant a tree, so I keep going, in case that's me. Another Animals as Bosses in Heaven poem. What if in heaven animals have jobs and your boss turns out to be the guinea pig from your childhood? This poem is called Potato Cult. What is more narcissistic than volunteering at the food pantry to try to secure a reward in heaven? Well, people say maybe you could volunteer so people will have food. This is when I repeat that in a mimicking voice. Maybe you could volunteer so people will have food. And I think the real question is whether I get a reward for that, for the mimic. Because what is a more pure motive than wanting to snap at everyone? And what is a more pure motive than baking or taking, churning and earning, cooking or cooking, or stealing muffins when you have food at home? You thought God said you were immoral, but he said immortal. Indeed, Christ is risen, and when people steal our cell phones, we should burst into song, singing, "Some say love, it is a flower that first begins to bloom. Some say love, it is a burger with fries and a peanut butter shake. Why are there maggots in the guinea pig cage? I can't say that I don't know, but some sure say they wouldn't want to show. Do you know what I mean? I don't. But in heaven, the stones on the grid will be shining." Tour of the universe. You may not know what to think if you find out on Judgment Day that you owe everyone who ever lived an individual apology. But then when you arrive at each house to tell them you're sorry, every single person gives you a fruit spritzer with a bag of jelly drops and caramel cream crumpets. Victory. The people who look at me and say, "I can do better than that." The ones who see me not do so great. The ones who say, "I won't make those mistakes." We'll let them do better. But maybe the prize is guinea pigs, and maybe I don't want 5,000 guinea pigs. Maybe I only want 3 guinea pigs, and I will name them Pancake, Janine, and Forgiveness. This really happened. The IRS says I owe them $140. My mom had to give me the money. I'm running out of money, but I can still sit in a chair and be happy. I can still write a poem and stare out the window. I see a lightning bug caught in a web. He is struggling, but I go outside and use my debit card to set him free. A sudden mystery. I'm going to throw a whole pizza on the subway track someday, ain't I? For the rats. For the sweet little friend rats looking for something yummy. Well, they will find it. In the name of Jesus Christ, there will be some pizza for this civilization, for this time and the dawn of happenstance. Also, I'm going to invent a bicycle with a boulder that drags along the ground when you pedal. No one will understand, and yet won't everyone know exactly what is going on? People will say, yes, this is how it is. People will say, yes, everything is like this. Except some people will say, wait a minute, something that is different from this is a regular bike without the boulder. Some people won't worry about it, and they'll order a piece of strawberry cheesecake. By now, you've probably guessed the town. It's New York City. Of course it is, and you have won the ice-capade. If I ever don't know what to say. If I ever don't know what to say, maybe I could just ask people if they're going to the picnic. And they'll say, what picnic? And I'll say, I don't know. Train poem. If I made a fool of myself in the train station, maybe it was because the train did not arrive on time and I got bored. So now who is the one singing in strangers' faces and doing a hop, skip, and a jump while hitting themselves? The turning ace of skylight. Pistachios are too much work, said Amanda. Well, so is a job, and yet you don't see me living in a recliner store. I'm not the one who decided to combine Judgment Day with the game shows of the 80s. It's simply part of God's plan for salvation. People say, please don't say stuff like that. Well, I say, please don't reach over and press the buzzer before I've prepared my answer to the question about whether rocks are alive. Ding, 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 sting, bring. Ding for the hot bowl, Orbit King. You say you want a rabbit pet. You say you want to hire a vet. You say that no one knows just yet, but that is why you've won the bet. Congratulations. That poem doesn't really make sense, but I started writing poems like that. Okay, this one's called Ice Cream Poem. What if people called you a fraud when you were eating ice cream? Like if they said, you don't really like ice cream and you're just pretending to eat it. We want cash. If all 7 billion people in the world all together started chanting, we want cash, do you think God would be mad because of how demanding we all were? Or do you think he would be proud of us for working together? This really did happen to you. What if you had a pet guinea pig named Roger, and when you left your apartment, he was sitting in the cage, but then later on, you got on the subway, and he was sitting in one of the seats? That would be crazy. I think they should make a movie like that, where it's kind of a normal movie about something else, but for a few minutes, it's actually about a mysterious guinea pig incident, just like what happened to you with Roger. Afternoon. Even without a watch, I can always tell when it's 2 p.m. by the way I haven't gotten anything done yet. A phone call. If I ever go to jail, I'm going to use my one phone call to call the jail and tell them that I think people in jail should get one phone call and a deck of cards. Okay. People will try to brush my prayers off like a cobweb, but to no avail. Only after 1,000,000 years of feasts and adventures will they walk upon a clear valley near the mountains of the land I could not predict, and they will say, at last we are free from that sparkling blessing shadow that followed us with its annoying treasure chest that turned up at every mile marker. And they will cut some timber to build a new home away from all the kingdoms, and when they cut into the wood, the pattern will bear the logo of the new wilderness brand that I could not possibly have thought of myself, with the warranty promising the full relief of all my prayers, according to this very blessing now, which cannot be revoked except in the court of law located in the spiral restart center of the palace behind the gate of agreement to all prayers. Well, what have we here? What if you decided to be sarcastic for the rest of your life, saying everything with a cynical sneer, and even working all your jobs as a joke? Reading everything aloud with a smirk, like newspapers and menus. Surprise, surprise, it's crispy breaded chicken tenders with a side of creamy Dijon. Like no one could have guessed. I love you. Behold the magic Ruffalo. Angel battles probably have some stuff that Earth battles don't have so far, like rainbow beam attacks and light bright force fields with portals to other dimensions, where more armies flood in and zap the demons with fire and lightning blazes. But I'm guessing that when things get really crazy and all seems lost, that's when the angels decide to dispatch the magic Ruffalo, who's a giant, soft, bumbling, friendly monster that serves all the hungry hosts and all their bloodthirsty enemies never-ending plates of peanut butter cookies that are so irresistible that evaporation, eradication, and repentance is guaranteed, and anyone in any of the realms who tries any of the cookies with the special juice that the angels share from the canteens can't help but just pack it up, go home, and turn on the game shows from the 80s, which no one realized had the everlasting blessings assortments also included for all the nations within every dollar won on the shows, and in every spin of the wheel, so that when all is said and done, and before anyone can turn around and say walla walla ding dang, a new mystery planet forms with an ever-evolving breakfast buffet wrapping itself around the entire equator for anyone in the universe to come try the new menu, which could feature some peanut butter cookies, or could just be some appetizers with a bowl of punch and prophecy. This poem is called Pie. What if in a mental hospital, the patients filled out check-in sheets every day rating their moods on a scale of 1 to 10, and then a therapist who was a schizophrenic math genius retired after 30 years and revealed that he was so good at therapy that he had decided what everyone's mood would be ahead of time, and he made them feel how they felt on purpose, and if he put all his patients' check-in sheets in order, their ratings matched the first 10,000 digits of pi. What if? What if there was a hypothetical shock collar that shocked you whenever anyone did something bad that you also would have done? This poem is called Jingle Bell, Jing Jang, Jangle Bell. Some people get mad when you tell them something religious because they know you would trade their friendship for a pocket full of jangles. But what they don't know is that the jangles loop back around to the days of old where your real self is waiting for them past the pool of 1,000 sorrows, holding the keys to a super bus with a buffet and a couch full of their best people. Love is not rude. All y'all's little religion problems are going to dissolve into the lemon part of the lemon meringue pie that either the Catholics or the evangelicals bake and bring to the Presbyterian supper that wasn't supposed to be a contest, but did turn out that way because of the email that promised $30,000 instead of salvation. The tuition of discipleship. Sometimes when you're working on an important Christian project like staying alive, something's got to give. You just can't do everything, and for me, the first thing to go will have to be my righteousness, and then my character and good deeds, and all my faith and values. And then what will be left but my bloody heart on a stick on sale at Bilo in the candy apple section? You have food on your face, and your shoes smell like dead mice. That's what I say to myself in the Taco Bell line, even though it's not me I should be mad at, but the cashier who pretended to have an open register and then stepped away when I went up to order. But I started thinking about how as much as people can put on a play, reality can be unreal. And I should not go by what people do and say, but by the prayers of the imaginary animals who keep me company. They are the ones who probably have the last word, or at least the next to the last word, before I get my report card on Judgment Day, which won't seem so great at first until I notice that among all the D-minuses is a score of 4,905 on one certain quiz that only had a scale of 100. But somehow I said something that reminded the teacher of the time when he played basketball with the planets and made a billion three-pointers, all without the people on the planets even knowing they were being tossed through nebula rings, and many not even realizing that their imaginary rabbits were planning a surprise for them after they left Taco Bell with some mad feelings and discovered in their heart a Christmas prayer so sincere that Santa Claus, Jesus Christ, and E.T. decided to open an arcade together in space and call it, "Why Was That Cashier So Mean?" Poem. On Judgment Day, in front of everyone, I'm going to tell Jesus Christ that I'm the person who invented trains. People will be looking on and they will be like, wow. And Jesus will probably say, well done. But most everyone won't realize that of course I didn't invent trains and he is just saying my joke was well done. Yawning chasm of fire. God made over 7 billion people, so do you think he won't hesitate to toss the bad ones into a yawning chasm of fire? But he likes people so much that he made 7 billion of them. So do you think he won't hesitate to save the bad ones from the yawning chasm of fire? Betrayal dust. A love so great among friends forever that all our slights and lapses will shine on too as magic glitter handed to us in crystal vials in some light-filled age to come as we toast each other with wooden mugs at the Underground Council and drink our favorite potions before taking into lost worlds the fragile glass bottles of sparkling betrayal dust, which is now a special medicine to heal entire civilizations that did not rise or maybe fall to our level of camaraderie. Shadow light. This is one of my favorite poems. It has to do with trying to be good but feeling bad. Shadow light. It does not make a lot of sense to be a bad person in Jesus' name, but it can be quite a blast of kindness to face the world with all your faults and foibles, and especially with what is even worse, a blazing sacrifice. And does that gift not increase with every flicker of a shadow? Perhaps some people glow with an eerie green light and their torches of faith are in a dark cave of a soul. Are we not the essence of Halloween? Jack-o'-lanterns being smashed while the children trick or treat. What if you were in the hospital and it was the neurology unit and they gave you some Jell-O and it was gray and wrinkled? Okay, I think I have time to do this one. It's called The Golden Hour. At volunteer work, I'm feeling a little bit better about Judgment Day, like Jesus Christ might say to me, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat, except I'm not sure that Jesus likes canned pears. And then I start thinking about the Bible verse that says, the measure you use will be used on you. And I give good tips in coffee shops, but wonder if I can trade that credit for a stricter measure on child abusers so they are wiped from the face of the earth. And then on Judgment Day, I might net right at exactly 0. And I'm given one courtesy meal where Jesus says, you know what? It's true, I don't like canned pears. And he hands me a leftover can of magic pears that can be planted to grow a tree that sprouts mansions, all stocked with toys and candy for the children who were saved by my rage. I'm just going to do one quick short poem to finish up, and I think it'll be this one. What's terrible? What's terrible is when you find out that everyone who said, I like you, was talking to your hat. Okay, I think that's all.
Thank you. That was awesome. That was so much fun, Refried Bean. And if people do want to get your ebooks, they can just go to your website.
Yeah, my website has links to, oh, I just clicked out. Oh, am I still on? Okay,
you're still on, you're good.
Yes, my website has links to my blogs and ebooks. And my ebooks are on a lot of sites, so they're almost everywhere. They're not on Amazon yet, but they probably will hopefully be there soon. So.
Yay, awesome. And if people have a question for Sarah, we may have time for a few questions at the end. Sarah, thank you so much. That was so fun. So those endings and those lines were amazing. Next up, we have Mariangela, who is currently finishing up her doctorate at Cornell. Mariangela is a poet, sociocultural and visual anthropologist, and an ethnographic filmmaker whose work builds on decolonial, feminist, and sensory ethnographic methods to understand indigenous resistance. She's also an amazing poet, and I'm very excited to hear what she's been working on. Hi, Mariangela.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry my comment section doesn't work, so I couldn't participate, although I participated in my heart and mind during the prior readings. My series tonight is called 7 Breakups and a Maybe, and it's a series of anti-love poems, in a sense. You know, in a world in which we tend to celebrate the gender binary by literally burning the state of California down, which is happening right now, I want to offer you these poems as perhaps a stubborn refusal to participate in a discourse that frames so many as perpetual others, a refusal to name erasures, a refusal to offer, my hard-earned pain for whoever's consumption, and a refusal ultimately to accept that hope and happy endings are the only possible outcomes of a life lived well. So let's think of this as the last exorcisms of relationships that were important to me, and for some reason they didn't work out. And those reasons were usually political, related to my positionality in the world, related to borders and, the world politics, religion, mobility, and everything else that can, interfere in a relationship that is already difficult. The opaque interrogation of dust, the twin crackling of bone marrow and fear, as if it wasn't kindness they rebranded at love after all. I was 18, in a new city, a new skin, used to pass by an old opera house snuck in between 18th century buildings that smelled like dusk. The bright echo of Carmina Burana's rehearsals jolted my heart into my throat, into quiet despair, into winter's rage for the first of whom I call lust. See, to love is to pay attention. You heard this story 85 billion times, still, you can't remember why I keep reshuffling these bones. Still, you ask, yawning indifferently, why this of all stories is more you than any yous I've ever known? There is only one kind of hunger for the immigrant, its name, home. Only one kind of love for the rejected. Its shape is the shape of your body waking up at 5 a.m. in a panic, asking whatever came of that child we didn't stop to buy a set of pens from on Champs-Élysées. Did you know the little boy was Romanian, I asked. No, you answered, saddened by the thought he might still be there. See, we don't pay attention. We never buy misery from our own. See, the distance between my hands and the hands of those I love always growing. Post-memory, minutes turn into gnarly fingers, hours into locks opening themselves, days into shared vertigos, months into years, into years, into years, into endless suitcases. There is no face like yours in this room, city, country, continent. And it seems I forgot to memorize the contours of your mouth, its silk, its violet, its violence. Table for two. I once carried the dimly blue ball of hope to slivers of fume and clay and marrow. Bewitched by the sultry quivers of May's moon, under the downpour of patronizing benevolence from cruel, neglectful gods, I jumped to cobwebs spun by your frigid palms, to the monstrous geography of us, to the shimmering of rain against skin, to the lottery of wrecked loves and sin, to questions that open in the mouth like glass shatters on an empty stomach. Why do you always set a table for two when you can't even hear the timid rustle of distant footsteps? What do you know of vacant love? You who cannot, who will not be my friend. This body isn't completely my own. This body isn't completely my own. It is a land whose soothing rain is a glance of you. It is an ocean whose anger sinks the fishing boats of the downtrodden. This body has lived many lives, which makes it fair to say I have outlived as many me's as you have tried to kill. This body no longer remembers how it feels to carry an oversized watermelon to the waterfall, to fix it in between large stones as the river smells like fresh fish swimming upstream. Its watermelons are tasteless, seedless, thus pointless. It requires a Costco membership nowadays, life insurance, soft pillows, commodities that gaslight instead of heal. This body no longer remembers how it feels to walk barefoot under prune trees planted by its ancestors. No longer does it break the sun under its squinting eyes, nor does it impolitely crush cobblestones between its toes. This body sows itself into the deep sorrow of the sea, undresses only at night under the bare shadows of the fig tree we forgot to plant in our yard before we've grown so distant and hard. This body thinks it's seen and done it all. But truth be told, it didn't know much more than a gleam of moonlight refracted on a shadowed glass, wallowing in the dust, knows. Sparrow. The symmetry of our desires bridged over cliffs like a feather, clumsy and tight, like a burst of sparks at twilight. Otherwise, nothing was said. Just your hands hung open like a black moon. Hope is a secret ore of gold in the underbelly of despair, yet you say, my love is a blind lake that strangles you. How can I collect the broken fragments of your departure when your heart runs ahead of time like a house sparrow? Inside human. And at midnight, I will fall out of love once again. As the clock breaks the camel's back twice, inside today's newspaper, old news gathers shape-shifting as new. A business boomed overnight, another collapsed, the international arena chock full of poor man's politics while the president, whatever his name is, inside human, a putrid, unforgiving God. Indeed, someday I will forget my parents fled from each other, throwing behind landmines and dull knives. Someday I will forgive the emptiness of shipping yards adorned by slow-moving forklifts and neon lights. Has my unhappiness brought you happiness? In abundance, though. Firewood can curse the air more than the faintest memory of love can. Did you know? On the day of my birth, you brought me funeral flowers, a bouquet of white lilies just in case you'll miss me on my deathbed. There are only so many ways a soul gets startled out of skin. Losing love is all of them. Young lioness love. One night, I entered the lion's den unsummoned. Unafraid, tenderness clutched both fists, maddened by love. When the lion opened its mouth laconically, a dagger entered my spleen, undignified. Spring, with your promise of life, your swift cruelty beckons me. Things change is a lie buttered on bread. Its skeleton grows on you like rapture inhabits despair. Truth is a dead end after another, flies buzzing over the stench of lost hope. I miss the moment when turning the tables on us, our bodies forgot bones can break. I feel less wretched nowadays, more me, never enough, unworthy of unfortunate death. Spring, Do not come, not yet. My hands are nocturnal. My hands are nocturnal, though they dream of caressing the edge of stolen time. An endless reign has just begun. What is gone is gone. Need I mention the flight, the frightening voyage into each fluttering of hips facing your silence, its violence? Need I mention the last night with its dulled stench, the grand illusion of forgiveness plastered like a sage smirk on my poker face? I stood on the abandoned shore of your grief, looking for my lost keys in the pockets of my gray work pants, strained by bitter words wrapped in cold rain and lips sewn in a bundle of anger. Never mind the umbrella you bought before the dust bowl, you said. Long after the rain stops, if you ask the earth, is it still lonely? It will answer, of course. Everything is on loan, don't you know? Sobriety. The bibliography of rage curves and withers out of breath, like a drunk knitting the knot of sobriety when someone's looking only. Like stale water springs up to roaring foam. In its listlessness, amid a world of hate, the soul hungers as promises are hanging low on the parched firmament. The reason willows don't weep on this lakeshore, unknown. If they didn't already know their way back home, I'd chunk them in a gas station trash can, mid half-eaten burgers, empty Coke bottles, unlucky scratch-offs. I'd casually let them sleep to the inattentive fingers on the open highway, hoping they get run over by as many trucks as I've counted while waiting for the good life. If they didn't know their way back home, our memories. Grudge. Now, the mountain crumbles under the weight of new questions. Its numbness stretches towards east as mine keeps still to hear the wolves, snowstorms, and frozen lunatics counting change on train station benches. Like a single night beast, the cacophony of migrating birds angrily pecks worms from my open arteries until the earth turns to red ash and blind curses. As the sun pulls over my face, a bitter smile, spring enters the room, though its cadence still pulses somewhere on the outside. I swallow all pride in gulps of solitude, as the golden handprints of betrayal continue to pick at the scabbed skin of your resounding absence. Now, the sky uncorks for cold rain, unleashing a demented spatter that reminds me no one in this family ever died of love. Around here, we bear grudges only against poems. The sea repeats itself. The sea repeats itself. Aren't you the one who eats her own heart, who spins the thread of misery so eloquently? Woodcutter, when Venus flaps her arms from above and olives crush against your smile blindly, when the sluggish daybreak strikes against the blood-stained anvil that killed us once, when your breastbone steals cypress kisses from the slanted mouth of a restless ocean, do you understand then why I must forget the abominable Eve never picked her own damn apple, but was forced by the betrayal of meteorite men to strike a midnight bargain? And finally, maybe. Once, my love, I held the red balloon over my lips. It would save me, I thought, of a mouthful of possibilities. It would cut short my sailor temper, stuff back in the questions, the lonely, the knowing we would never be again. Once, I tasted freedom in the gallop of wild horses, in the rebel kamikaze flight of a kite that escaped your inattentive hands to dive into the ocean. People and kites, neither can stomach the illusion of freedom. When I was 7, I found a frozen bird on the side of the road, brought it to life with my warm breath, hid it in my oversized winter coat, took her to school to learn some communist history, propaganda poems, math. Late to class, I was punished to stand in the corner all alone. An overzealous kid who noticed the bird pecking at my frozen fingertips ratted me out. But our teacher was kind. And what I remember most was the happiness I felt when I understood we wouldn't throw away the bird, that we would feed her and let her fly out after class. This August, it rained a lot. There were some earthquakes and landslides, and the 3 baby birds I found in a jungle nest have died of hunger, I am told. My friend Carla tried to feed them earthworms, but motherless from birth, they couldn't quite bite on, chew on, hang on to life. Once, my love, I held a little trembling bird in my left palm, held it towards the February sky, and called her Maybe. So that's it from me. Actually, there were 11 poems, but some breakups didn't quite take the first time. A little bit of repeat.
That was wonderful. Mariangela, where can people learn more about you?
Well, I have a website with my name.
Okay, let's go to your website. We'll put that into the stream here. I'm going to bring everybody back up just for a minute. Thank you so much to all of our readers tonight. Please go check out their websites, buy their books. Once again, we've had Mariangela Mihai, Refried Bean, and Sarah Kain Gutowski. It has just been such a pleasure. And we are here every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Either Derek Berry, myself, or Andrew Clark will be hosting. We have a lot of really exciting lineups coming up in weeks to come, so definitely check those out. Let me see if we have any. I don't think we had any questions, but that was really amazing. Please give yourself a round of applause, and we will see everybody back here next Thursday night.